After Kamala wins, we will together do everything that we can to change U.S. policy toward Netanyahu.
He's right. You just don't need to bring up Biden and all this if you want to talk about this. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair.
Understand that there are millions of Americans who disagree with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris on the terrible war in Gaza. I am one of them. While Israel had a right to defend itself against the horrific Hamas terrorist attack of October 7th, which killed 1,200 innocent people and took 250 hostages, it did not have the right to wage an all-out war against the entire Palestinian people. It did not have the right to kill 42,000 Palestinians.
Damn, they hit Bernard with the 2 different camera angles on this one. That's crazy. They hit him with a cinematic, and yet they couldn't get him anti-reflective glasses. I mean, that personally makes sense. It's like, come on, Bernard is a relic, okay? Like, that's not happening.
2/3 of whom were children, women, and the elderly.
I gotta
or
pee.
Injure over 100,000 people in Gaza. It did not have the right to destroy Gaza's infrastructure, housing, and healthcare system. It did not have the right to bomb every one of Gaza's 12 universities. It did not have the right to block humanitarian aid, causing massive malnutrition in children and, in fact, starvation. And that is why I am doing everything I can to block U.S. military aid and offensive weapons sales to the right-wing extremist Netanyahu government in Israel. And I know that many of you share those feelings. And some of you are saying, how can I vote for Kamala Harris if she is supporting this terrible war? And that is a very fair question. And let me give you my best answer. And that is that even on this issue, Donald Trump and his right-wing friends are worse. In the Senate, in Congress, the Republicans have worked overtime to block humanitarian aid to the starving children in Gaza. The president and vice president both support getting as much humanitarian aid into Gaza as soon as possible. Trump has said Netanyahu is doing a good job and has said Biden is holding him back. He has suggested that the Gaza Strip would make excellent beachfront property for development. And it is no wonder Netanyahu prefers to have Donald Trump in office. But even more importantly, and this I promise you, after Kamala wins, we will together do everything that we can to change U.S. policy toward Netanyahu.
He's right. You just don't need to bring up Biden and all this if you want to talk about this. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair. It's also not how this works anyway. Like, it's just not a thing that people do. Like, the idea, the cold, hard, calculated, lesser evil voting mentality is not a is not a strong message whatsoever. It's not a strong message at all. It is demonstrably failed. And the reality of the matter is, for most people, if this is their one issue, I don't know if he'd be able to convince them. Like, if Kamala Harris, dude, here, I'm going to be radically honest with you, okay? Like, lesser evil voting in theory is correct, okay? It is. It just is. It doesn't matter, though, because that's not how people operate. That's number one. And number two, okay, not only is it not how people operate, but also beyond that, the Democratic Party takes advantage of that time and time again to move to the right on every single issue, even when it is actually sabotaging their own chances. And worst of all, if Kamala Harris had done anything, like anything at all, even marginally different than Joe Biden, to like distance herself from Joe Biden on this objectively unpopular issue, on this objectively unpopular thing, if she had even communicated a different perspective, then these arguments would make a little bit more sense. Okay? I will never tell you not to vote. Things aren't just right because you say so. What the fuck? Wait, what do you mean? Dude, it's literally 99% Hitler versus 100% Hitler. technically it is correct. 99% Hitler is better than 100% Hitler. What are you talking about? But that's not how it works. Like, that's not how anything works. The f do you mean? Who the f do you think you are? Instance of a lesser evil is nothing but motivated reasoning for For an either or fallacy? In a duopoly, it is unfortunately how that works. Also, I'm not even saying that like you should vote for Kamala Harris or you shouldn't vote for Kamala Harris at all. I don't know why you're so aggressive about this issue. Yeah, vote socialist. If you want to vote socialist, go ahead. You know, I'm not gonna convince you otherwise. The fuck do you mean? As long as you're not voting for Donald Trump. The claim that they've been working around the clock to get a ceasefire deal, but they don't have anything to show for it. If they did, they would have swung a lot of votes just for the chance of a ceasefire happening. Yes. Okay. It's correct. 100%. If Kamala Harris had done anything, like anything, and not just like communicated that her and Biden are tied in this situation to one another, it would be so much easier for the likes of Bernie Sanders and many others, who I would still be critical of, mind you, to at least put forward a convincing argument. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the same problem. You cannot outflank the campaign. You just can't, okay? There is no world where you can just imagine a separate way that the Democrats are going to operate. You can't convincingly tell people that, like, what the Democratic Party is tirelessly actually doing is false. What they're spending their money on, what they're spending their finite amount of time on in this truncated campaign is actually not the truth. You cannot correct for the mistakes of the campaign. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand for some reason. That's why they place a lot of emphasis on the likes of myself, right? Oh, dude, your opinion on this matters quite more than you think. You have a lot of influence. It's like, I cannot convince people personally on an issue that the Democratic Party chooses to not convince people on. It's just not going to happen. That's it. It's that simple. And it didn't work in 2016. And it didn't. I mean, I literally advocated for Hillary Clinton. As a Jew, I couldn't vote for president when my siblings in Abrahamic faith are being because they're Palestinian morally. I just couldn't vote for genocide. The first time I voted with my faith. No, it's not just that I'm a Twitch streamer. Even if I had 250,000 people watching and hanging on every word. As the chatter correctly pointed out earlier, you cannot, as a singular person, outflank the campaign. You just can't do that. If I had that kind of motion, Bernie Sanders would have fucking been the president in 2016. Okay? You have to work within the framework that the Democratic campaign is operating in. This is why I was early on, when the swap out happened, unceremoniously hopeful because of some of the decisions that they had made. Netanyahu literally serves as a national security threat. I think the Democratic Party would want to rewrite the dynamic with Israel prior to the next election, as they must see the threat it represents, which is why they aren't poking the bear. Completely radio silent on it compared to Biden. I think if they win, the tone changes. I don't think Kamala is ideologically aligned with Zionism in the same way that Biden was. I think she is. Maybe not to the same degree of like ultra Zionism, like she's not as rabid as he is, but I think that she has not personally done anything, and I consider myself someone who like pays close attention to this. I don't think she's done a lot to show that. Not only is she currently the vice president, but beyond that, she had a fantastic opportunity to separate herself, which she did not. And there was plenty of evidence to show why this would be a smart decision in terms of her electoral chances. But consistently, time and time again, the Democratic Party and the campaign has basically cast aside and has chosen to try to win in spite of this very obvious gimme, whether it be snubbing a Palestinian American from speaking, to kicking out a prominent Arab invited guest, to consistently giving Benjamin Netanyahu unlimited weapons every time Benjamin Netanyahu comes out and shits on Joe Biden over and over again. It's just very frustrating.
An immediate ceasefire, the return of all hostages, a surge of massive humanitarian aid, the stopping of settler attacks on the West Bank, and the rebuilding of Gaza for the Palestinian people. And let me be clear, we will have, in my view, a much better chance of changing U.S. policy with Kamala than with Trump, who is extremely close to Netanyahu, is a like-minded right-wing extremist ally. But let me also say this, and I deal with this every single day as a U.S. Senator. As important as Gaza is, and as strongly as many of us feel about this issue, it is not the only issue at stake in this election. If Trump wins, women in this country will suffer an enormous setback and lose the ability to control their own bodies. That is not acceptable. If Trump wins, to be honest with you, the struggle against climate change is over. While virtually every scientist who has studied the issue understands that climate change is real and an existential threat to our country and the world, Trump believes it is a hoax. And if the United States, the largest economy in the world, stops transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel, every other country, China, Europe, all over the world, they will do exactly the same thing. And God only knows the kind of planet we will leave to our kids and future generations. If Trump wins at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, he will demand even more tax breaks for the very richest people in our country while cutting back on programs that working.
Do you genuinely think that not voting as a form of protest to the Dems will actually motivate them to change their stance on things moving forward? I agree with you, but they're so fucking dumb. No, they're not. They're not necessarily dumb. They're deliberately just refusing. And no, I don't think that a protest vote causes them to learn an important lesson. I don't believe that. Yeah, no. Democrats, the Democratic Party will never, ever in a million years, quote unquote, learn a fucking lesson. Okay? If they learned a lesson, they would have learned it in 2016. They did not. The party since then has moved more to the right. What lessons did they learn? You cannot teach someone a lesson when they're holding a bag that requires them to not learn that lesson. It's just not going to happen. What you can do is organize outside of this and create pressure campaigns, become impossible to avoid. Unlike the top of the hour, which I will no longer be serving, like I said, now that my contract is up, but you can still subscribe for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub if you're lucky.
Families
Uncle Grampy, thank you for the 10 gifted subs.
The rich will only get richer, while the minimum wage will remain at $7.25 an hour.
Organizing under a Kamala presidency would be significantly easier than Trump. That's one of my core points. I mean, the only counter to that is that, like, liberals do get real fucking quote-unquote fake radical under a Trump administration. And there was objectively more mass protests under the Trump administration than there was under the Biden administration. And the Democrats themselves also clamped down on college campus protesters. So, you know, that's something to consider.
And millions of our fellow workers will continue to earn starvation wages. Did you all see the recent Trump rally at Madison Square Garden? Well, I did. And what I can tell you is that as a nation, as all of you know, we have struggled for years against impossible odds to try to overcome all forms of bigotry, whether it is racism, whether it's sexism, whether it's homophobia, whether it's xenophobia, you name it. We have tried to fight against bigotry. But that is exactly what we saw on display at that unbelievable Trump rally. It was not a question of speakers getting up there disagreeing with Kamala Harris on the issues. That wasn't the issue at all. They were attacking her simply because she was a woman and a woman of color. Extreme, vulgar sexism and racism. Is that really the kind of America that we can allow? So let me conclude by saying this. This is the most consequential election in our lifetimes. Many of you have differences of opinion with Kamala Harris on Gaza. So do I. But we cannot sit this election out. Trump has got to be defeated. Let's do everything we can in the next week to make sure that Kamala Harris is our next president. Thank you very much.
No matter what Bernie says or does, I will still always love him and I will still always respect him. That's just the case, okay? Don't care. I still think that this is a man who's given his entire life to advocating for progressive causes, and I will forever respect that. That's it. Doesn't matter. It's true. What is this? Someone sent me this TikTok, and I didn't realize at the time when they sent me this TikTok, someone in the chat said, actually, no disrespect to Bernie, but this person has a significantly better take on lesser evil voting or the ethics of voting than Bernie. And I wish I had seen that it's a 28-minute TikTok so I could have, one, humiliated the person for linking it to me, and then two, banned them from the community. It's far too late to do that now because I have no idea who it was. But if you think that I am going to watch a 28-minute TikTok, like there could be a hidden truth in there. There could be a secret truth that I was not privy to about how to like mass bread pill every American into full tilt luxury gay space communism or whatever, fully automated. And I still would not watch it. Okay. I think if you ever find yourself convincing someone to sit through a 28-minute TikTok, that is worthy of a wellness check. Like you got to have someone come in and check in on you. Okay. We're moving on from that. And we're getting to this.
One potential hurdle for Vice President Harris is reluctance among some Arab American voters, especially in Michigan, to support her due to the Biden administration's support for Israel in the war in Gaza. Ed O'Keefe is in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where he spoke to voters who previously told him they would not support President Biden when he was the likely nominee. Ed, good morning.
Tony, good to see you. You know, each of these battleground states is going to be won or lost by just a few thousand votes. And while the economy, inflation, abortion rights, the future of democracy are all important issues, here in Michigan, the future of the war in Gaza is a deeply personal concern.
Now is the time to get out the vote, Michigan.
Vice President Harris rallied a crowd of more than 20,000 in Michigan Monday night.
I hear you.
But as she spoke, she was once again interrupted by a group protesting the war in Gaza.
We all want this war to end as soon as possible and get the hostages out, and I will do everything in my power to make it so.
People are so funny. They go, oh, you watch 3-hour fucking YouTube videos. How is this any different? Dog, like, how can I describe to you that a guy on his phone speaking to me for 28 minutes is not going to be able to keep my attention in the same fucking way that a well-produced vertical, a horizontal fucking landscape YouTube video could. Stop trying to argue with me on this. I'm not going to shame the person either. I'm not going to actually ban the person I'm memeing. But goddamn, you guys are so fucking annoying, dude. Holy shit. Everybody always loves being like, oh, well, I'm going to be the most annoying fucking person on the planet and just like now take everything you said super literally and argue with you on that instead. What is this like dunk culture that we fucking have with the chat in this goddamn chat? It's like always like, nah, you said something that is at odds with what I think the reality is.
The war remains a political challenge, and many Democrats fear support from Michigan's sizable population of Arab and Muslim American voters has slipped away.
Free Palestine!
Adam Abu Salah is a local activist who campaigned for President Biden in 2020. But when we first met him last year, Abu Salah had dropped that support because of the war.
It's that much of an issue for you?
Yeah, my people dying is that much of an issue for me.
And nearly a year later, with Harris now in the race.
She hasn't been any different than Biden on the campaign. I don't think she's going to be any different than Biden in office.
They're not listening to our concerns.
We spoke with Abu Salah and some friends.
Who here knows someone who has been killed in the last year in Gaza or Lebanon?
And all voted for Biden last time.
And what are you going to do this time?
Me, motherfucker, me too.
Third party?
Jill Stein.
Write-in or third party, I haven't made my decision, but it's one of those two.
Write-in or third party. You just can't ask us to vote for genocide, and it's a terrible position to be in. I don't want to see Trump as president, but I cannot, in good conscience, give her my vote.
You can't expect us to be healthy, functioning members of this country while you utilize our tax dollars.
It's so gross that people just like literally tell them like, shut the fuck up and take it. It's so gross. Like, it blows my mind that we have completely dropped the ball on like being able to extract concessions from our elected representatives. And in that process, like, our elected representatives openly say, like, I don't really care about you. I don't really care about your vote. And then people have the audacity to fucking yell at these people whose tax dollars are objectively killing their family members. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Did you have a problem with what Bernie said about this? Yes. Neither party is going to be an anti-genocide party. That's just the case. So focus on what you care about beyond that, I guess, if you want to make if you want to vote. But the reality is, even when you're holding your nose, understand that, you know, both parties are going full tilt genocide. I'm not going to sit here and fucking lie to you and act like Kamala is different.
To destabilize our homelands and murder our family members.
The Harris campaign is reaching out to Arab and Muslim voters with the help of local officials like Wayne County Deputy Executive Hasan, who spoke Monday night.
We are desperate for a president who sees us, who understands us, and who will give voice to our pain.
Turfy believes Harris is a better choice for their community.
I think we have to each do our part to prevent a Donald Trump presidency.
Tonight, Harris is back in Washington and set to deliver what her campaign calls a major closing argument on the ellipse in Washington with the White House behind her. The campaign says she's basically pushing Americans to turn the page on the Trump era and elect her. And of course, the ellipse is where Trump spoke just hours before the January 6, 2021 insurrection on the Capitol. Nate, 1 week to go, 7 days. There we go. 7 days to go.
No need for the graphics department when we have Ed O'Keefe. Thank you so much.